Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. I say this each and every day, and I'm going to keep saying it because you know what? You never know when you're going to look around your home and see something that sends those chills down your spine, and not in a good way, in a oh no way. Water Cleanup of Florida is here to make sure any leaks around your home or office, remember, our offices have issues too, and we got to take care of those. And that's something you really don't want to have to waste time with. 954-579-0356. Anytime you have any water damage of any kind. And again, we just poo-poo it. I did that. I saw stains. I tried to ignore it. My wife reminded me, look. I said, turned into a big deal. And they handled it well. But man, if I had just listened and been on it from the beginning, it would have been so much easier. Call them, 954-579-0356. When you notice anything around your home, they'll come out. They'll take care of it. And because of their licensed, insured, certified contractors, that's something that to me is worth its weight in gold. Not having to go to 2 different places to get the job done and then make it look good. No, they will get the job done and make it look brand new all in one. They handle it all. 954-579-0356. Check them out on the website. WCUFL.com, on their socials at Water Cleanup FL. Plus, check them out on Google. People are very active when it comes to Water Cleanup of Florida because they do such a great job. Over 75-star reviews. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, believe me, they have the guts. Miami Heat have been an organization built on guts. Whenever you write them off, they come back, they fight. They fight. This season's been up and down. They're sitting there around between the 6th and 8th seed. Oladipo's back. Butler's played well. Bam and Hero played well. Are they ready for a stretch run? We talked about the NBA as a whole. Touched on the Miami Heat with former Heat, great current Detroit Pistons analyst Grant Long today on the Devo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
A beloved member of the original Miami Heat, played with the Heat for many years, 15 years in the National Basketball Association, We welcome to the show the great one himself, Mr. Grant Long. Grant, how are you, my friend? Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, sir.
Lubie, what's up, man?
What's going on, my friend?
It's been far too long, man. I'm getting a sense that I've been replaced as the number one guest on the Defo show.
No.
Not ever possible. I mean, and especially when it comes to hoops, nobody more candid. I mean, I can tell you this, and it's always great when people that normally would be hypercritical of anybody that was doing any type of broadcasting tell you, hey, man, I love when you have Grant Long on the show. The guy brings it to the table like nobody else when it comes to NBA analysts. Do we start with the macabre, though? I mean, we were asking this question, and, what happened to Cade Cunningham, number one, and how have the Pistons perpetuated this cycle of being at the bottom of the Eastern Conference again, or right there knocking on the door with Charlotte? What's going on there in Detroit, if you can give us a little capsulization of where they're at?
Well, it seems like the injury bug consistently bites this team. And obviously, when you have the number one pick in Cade Cunningham, you think he's on his way to start getting better. That just hasn't happened because Cade has not been able to suit up. And it's been a big time detriment to this team, because they were going in the direction he was. Then you add Killian Hayes to the mix with a lottery pick as well, and Jaden Ivey this year, another lottery pick. So these guys were supposed to push this team out of mediocrity, and it just hasn't happened because the main cog is Cade Cunningham, and he has not been available. And they're struggling. They're struggling to play defense. They're struggling to play offense. There's not a category, I believe, that they are top 10, top 5, top 20 in the NBA in, and you're just not going to win basketball games when you can't do something well consistently, and that's what the Pistons are finding themselves in right now. They can't do anything well consistently. They'll have one game or one quarter where they'll play good defense, where they'll get their offense going, but the other 3 quarters, they go back to their old self. It's a matter of, first of all, they're being very young and still learning their way, guys. It's a tough transition from college when everybody feels like they're the man. All of a sudden you get to the NBA and you have to play with 4 other guys who are the man on their team in college, and it just doesn't happen so easily, and they're finding that out.
Grant, okay, so it's funny, athletes hate the word injury prone, and you would really think that there's not teams that are injury prone or cursed. But you do see the same teams with the same issues year in, year out. It's in football, in basketball. As a player, like, I remember Shaq years ago when he went to the Suns, he lamented the Heats, which is a joke because the Heat are as good as anyone when it comes to this stuff. But, like, can you feel if an organization handles this stuff well, if an organization handles stuff poorly? Like, year in, year out, the Pistons seem to deal with this, and there are a few organizations that deal with injuries every single year when other organizations don't.
Well, you're right, and I think they are dealing with it well. But I think when you have injuries like this, it also proves the point that your bench is not as well as you thought it was. And a lot of teams don't put a whole lot of attention into their benches because of the teams that do suffer those injuries and still are still able to maintain a winning record. You have to look to who they're bringing off the bench. If their bench is fortified and very good, then they're going to pick up the pace and continue to move forward. But if you don't have a bench and you're not invested in that bench, it's really going to tell on you when one of your star players go out or one of the guys that you consider main contributors. When those guys go out and you don't have a good bench, it's really going to tell them. And I think that's where the Pistons are too. They don't have a very deep bench. You look at scoring; they've got one or two guys who can put points on the board, and they sometimes even outscore the starters. But that's far and few between. So you look at your bench players. You don't fortify your bench. When you get players that get hurt that are going to the NBA and sports, you're really going to suffer. And you have to invest in your bench if you're going to be consistently good.
Grant Long with us here on the show. So what's the reaction around town? I mean, is there a movement on to get Dan Campbell to coach the Pistons? That would be interesting, too, to see him eat like a live animal during a pregame speech. Yeah, if you were in the locker room. And privy to that, just to get the team motivated to go out there and get off to a quick start.
Dan Campbell, that's nice. That's a pretty good one, Defo. I like that. Yeah. They need something with some shock value right now, and I feel bad for these guys because when you sign up, obviously they're living out their dream, but certainly you don't think. And I can attest to this because remember, I'm living out my dream as a Miami Heat player the first year. And we lose our first 17 games in a row. Who signs up for that? Yes. Nobody does. Yes. So when you think about these young players now who are struggling with the Pistons, this is not what they signed up for. Yeah, they're living their dream out, but it is certainly not what they signed up for and not as easy as they're finding out. Also, it's not as easy as they thought it would be. So it's a lot of work to be put in, and they've got to continue to do it. They've got to continue to believe in themselves. And one day it'll happen, and then they'll pick up from there and play more consistent on the right side.
It had to be. I remember that first year. I was such a huge Heat fan. I was so glad we had basketball here. A huge basketball fan at the time. Still was playing a lot of recreational basketball with my buddies, and we couldn't be more excited than to go to all of those games. And even while getting walloped, but the great mystery was where did they get the other basketball from after you had lobbed it into the Bermuda Triangle of hoops, Ronnie Cycli. And in an indoor game, it was rare to have a lost ball, especially a ball the size of a basketball.
Right, and listen, man, Cycli was our go-to guy. He gets behind a lot for being the black hole. But it was fun to play with him, and he was our guy. He was the guy of the moment with the Miami Heat during that era, and everything was just around him. As you know, Defo, you were there.
Yeah,
it was built around Ronnie Cycli being a dominant in the NBA. And,
well, he ended up quitting himself.
He had a decent career.
Sorry. I mean, you kind of broke up there a little bit on us, but no, he acquitted himself pretty well. I mean, he was so mechanical coming out of college. It wasn't. I mean, there are certain guys. I guess Zoe was like this. Wasn't he very mechanical as an offensive player?
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't like he became Larry Bird later on, but he did
very proficient.
Improve his fluency, let's say, as an offensive player, and looked a little bit more. Natural in his movements to the basket. All right, let's get into some stuff here. And this is an interesting one. I was watching a report about this, and we had talked about this, thinking maybe this was one of the great swindles of all time in NBA history, even though it involved an all-star. The Doncic Trae Young draft day trade. And in that draft, interestingly, in the second round, Dallas not only got Doncic in the first round with the trade with the Hawks, but got Jalen Brunson in the second round, which helped catapult them into a contending position, and likely year in and year out, as long as they have Doncic, they have a chance to build something around him. Do you think the Hawks, doomed themselves in that transaction by getting Trae Young? As talented as he may be, he does represent that guy that was shooting from the Coke machine with no conscience from 40 feet away.
Listen, the Hawks got fleeced big time.
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah.
It's phone for it.
We kind of got a bad connection there with Grant. Maybe we can, kind of reconnect there with Grant Long because we certainly want to get more of his thoughts here. And then in short order, we'll be talking to Tony Segreto also. Tony's going to join us via video from wherever he happens to be. I hope he's, having a good time up there in Vermont, which is where he loves to be. And he seems to catch a lot of sporting events in spite of him being buried there in the snow. But I don't think there's, any debate about who got the better of that transaction there is and I don't know what prompted. I mean, did the Hawks do one of those Clyde Drexler deals where they thought, well, we already have something like Doncic? There was nothing like Doncic. Grant back with us? Okay, good. All right, we kind of lost your thoughts there as you were breaking up, Grant, but you were saying that Atlanta definitely got hosed and may have buried themselves for a long time.
Yeah, I think so, and because you have to look at Luka. You don't look at what Trae's doing. You look at Luka and what he's doing. He is going to be a top of the NBA as long as he's playing. He's going to be vying for an MVP of the league as long as he's playing. And I don't think Trae Young is going to ever be in that situation. He's a fine player, a good piece, but he's not the piece. And I think Luka Doncic is the piece, not only for his team, but for the NBA. This is a guy that, when you think about who talks about him, I remember LeBron James, even the late Kobe Bryant, had eyes on this guy when he was playing overseas and said he would be the guy. He was going to be the next big thing coming into the NBA, and he is certainly not disappointed. And give kudos to Mark Cuban, because he saw it, recognized it, and said, I got to have that guy. And whatever he said to the Atlanta Hawks to convince them to, hey, make that draft day trade, whatever he said, give him kudos, because he made it work.
Well, look, Trae Young's a special player, but like you said, he's not Luka. Luka's, you're not going to be an MVP candidate, which Trae Young is not. A team that does have MVP candidate in Jimmy Butler, a guy, especially when it comes to playoff time, the Miami Heat have gotten out of the gate weird. Right now, they are hovering around the 6-7 seed, and they're within earshot of the 3-4 seed. So they're sort of finding their footing. But it's interesting to me, like when you look at the Heat and the Warriors, like two teams that were NBA Finals contenders after last season and going into this season. Like, Grant, you played a long time in the NBA. Like, when a team is full of veterans, is there a complacency that sets in? Like, it feels like to me both these organizations know they're going to get there, so they're like, which I don't know if they will or they won't, but like it feels like there's sort of a complacency that sets in with organizations when you bring back the same group of guys year in, year out.
And listen, that is a tough one. It's so tough to coach and as a player be involved in. It's like trying to coach a team after you've won 10 in a row. What are you going to tell your guys to keep them motivated? Because if you won 10 in a row, they think that they're doing everything right.
Yep.
In the Heat, they've been atop the NBA for so long, and it's like now, okay, we understand when to turn it on. We understand that the postseason is coming. We're going to pace ourselves to get there. We don't have to be the number one seed. We just have to get there because we know when we get there what we're capable of. And I think that's where the Heat is right now. If you go back to all the San Antonio Spurs and the success that they've had when they had Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, those three guys were always the focal point. But they always seem to get some new, fresh bodies in to keep those guys motivated to shoot for another championship, to shoot for a better record. Because you have to keep pushing those guys. They've been to the mountaintop time and time again. What motivates them to get there again? You got to put some young guys around them that have not been to the mountaintop, because now they're going to push and play a little bit harder because they want to achieve that success. And in turn, that also motivates your three nucleus type players in Ginobili, Parker, and Tim Duncan. I think that's where the Heat is right now. Yeah, they're going to be a good team, but they've got to get those younger guys around them to be major contributors to get them there. But once they get there, then the Jimmy Butlers and the Kyle Lowrys will take over and win basketball games in the postseason for you. But right now, it's just important to get there and maintain some level of consistency and be playing your best basketball moving toward the end of the season after the All-Star break. He's doing one good thing right now. They're playing well at home, and that's always a good thing, playing well at home.
We were talking earlier about how teams are in a position much like Detroit, where they're in the lottery a couple of years in a row, 2, 3 years in a row, and they still can't seem to show any signs of life. I mean, you're looking at the Rockets, Orlando, in that situation, and you see teams go through these syndromes. We saw it for a long time with the Philadelphia 76ers. It was like, how long is this process, man? I mean, just unbelievable. And now I'm looking at the Pacific Division, Grant Long. There has to be some kind of a typo here. You have the Clippers, Golden State hovering around 500. Phoenix is sub 500 because Booker's been out. And I guess Chris Paul is not, maybe he's showing signs of wear and tear finally. The Lakers have had injury problems, as they do, and don't have a great deal of depth, even though LeBron's having a great season. Sacramento is atop the division with a winning record. Isn't that the one team that you guys considered? I mean, when you had, if you had any options to make a no trade clause, it was like, don't ever trade me to the Kings. I don't know if you ever graced their roster. I'm going to say no to that, but because you seem too sane to have ever played in Sacramento. How is this possible? I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, and you're thinking about Sacramento, and they've had a couple of coaching changes over the last few years. At least the last 3 years, they've had 2 different coaches. So you're certainly not thinking that they're going to be atop the Western Conference. But through everything that's happened, the injuries, Steph Curry going down, the Lakers retooling and still not being able to come back, it opens the door for everybody else to come in and be special, or if not even special, just have an opportunity to be a player in the conference. And that's where Sacramento finds themselves. And you think about who their coach is now, former assistant coach with the Golden State Warriors, and he has found himself with a decent team, but they're playing consistent basketball. They're playing on both sides of the ball. They're playing defense, they're playing offense, and the opportunity was there. It's not like they, if everybody else is at full strength, that they'd be atop the Western Conference, but the opportunity was there, and they took complete advantage of it. So, hats off to them for being here for the moment. Will it last? We don't know. But, hey, listen, the Sacramento Kings are there right now, and they're going to live in the moment. Golden State Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, all those guys have the marquee, all those teams have the marquee names, but they're not playing like marquee teams. So somebody has to step up and do it. It reminds me of when Chicago was so good, all of a sudden Michael Jordan takes a step back and the Houston Rockets win 2 championships. Hey, but the cats are away right now, so let the mic play.
It's interesting to me. I mean, I guess they've shown signs of life at different times, but this is phenomenal to think they're in that division and they're atop the division while these other teams are kind of staggering around. Did it bother you at all? I mean, it used to bother the short Jewish kids like me that, the tall kids would get consideration for basketball teams if you were going, in certain leagues or whatever, and they would be the first pick even though they couldn't play a lick. Does it bother you when you see a guy like Jokic, who is a vertical leap, I think might have been eclipsed by even the Whopper, Billy Pauls, back in the day? Like a guy that just doesn't even leave the ground. How is it? I mean, would it be frustrating to play against this guy, Grant Long, as a guy that was a top defender on the inside, used to tangle with guys like that in the paint, to have this guy score like 40 a night when he never leaves the ground? How is he doing it?
He is the top of the NBA when it comes to being a skilled player. Yeah, you mentioned he's very slow, methodical in what he does, and that's what he is more so than anything. He's methodical. He thinks out everything, he plans out, he sees it before it happens, and then he executes. So he's that single player. And you look at Luka Doncic in the same way. He's not as fast as everybody else on the floor. He doesn't jump as high, but he's playing a point guard position, and he's 6'8", 6'9". And he's very creative and clever with the basketball. And I remember him coming into the league and he said, the NBA is going to be easy compared to where I used to play overseas. And he's certainly proving that point. It looks easy to him, and it looks easy to Jokic as well, playing the center position. So, hats off to him. The guys are very creative and very skilled. And this is off the beaten path. But I remember Stan Van Gundy, former coach and announcer, saying the players that are coming from overseas are leaps and bounds ahead of the American basketball players because they are taught the fundamentals, and we're not being taught the fundamentals here in our basketball camps. All coaches care about are winning versus teaching the kids how to play. And players overseas get all the fundamentals of basketball. That's how they excel, and we're seeing that Luka and both the Joker.
Yeah, both are great passers and great facilitators for others. and they always seem to be in the right place at the right time. I mean, which is great. And in addition to being able to chuck up threes, and it is pretty remarkable. All right, Grant, always a pleasure, my
Thanks,
friend.
Grant, man.
We thank you
won't
so
be
much.
strangers.
We will not ignore you. I mean, if
I
you're
wasn't
willing, we
ignoring
want
you.
you on the show as much as possible because we love talking basketball with you. And
You are
thanks so
my
much for
guy.
being with us,
We love you, Grant, man. Thanks.
Grant Long.
All right,
ladies and
fellas.
gentlemen.
We truly always have a great time talking NBA with Grant Long. He's a guy that was an analyst with the Thunder. He's been an analyst with the Pistons for years. He follows the NBA really well. He covers the NBA really well, has relationships with the players, talks with the players, and a guy who played in the league over a decade with the Miami Heat and other organizations. Really has a keen eye when it comes to talking about the NBA. And he was very honest about the Heat. I mean, it's funny. No one's really talked about complacency because it's an organization that fights tooth and nail, and Jimmy Butler doesn't accept less. They're missing a lot of games, and they're not always injured. And that to me is also part of complacency in the sense that you know what your goal is, you know where you're trying to go. Where some of these organizations, like the Cavs, they want to win in the regular season. Tiring yourself out in the regular season is fun for your fans, but what will it do for the postseason? Yeah, it's annoying to see players when 70 games used to be not a lot playing 60 to 65. It's annoying, and who knows what it'll do with your seeding come playoff time. But you want to be healthy in the playoffs, and to me, the question is, can you do that and still find a chemistry that will win in the playoffs? Last year, the Heat played great all regular season, and it ended up taking them very far into the playoffs. Can the Heat do this? And I'm not saying it's on purpose where they're not trying, but guys are missing a lot of games, and they're not always hurt. They're just not. So they're a little banged up, and I get it, but these are younger dudes. Bam missing a game here and there. Hero missing a game here and there. These are young guys that should be out there. So I'm all for making sure the guys are ready for the playoffs. You've been to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 out of the last 3 years. We're in the NBA Finals a couple years ago. We're a shot away from the NBA Finals this past year. They are over 500. They are in the East. It's not like anyone's running away and hiding. The Celtics have been good, but they've had their moments where they've struggled. So the Heat have played much better basketball of late. I get it. You don't need to go all balls to the wall in the regular season. But you do want to build a rapport, and you do want to build chemistry. And you do want to make sure you have depth, because that was one thing that was really good for the Heat last year was their depth. Vincent's played well, yeah, but Lowry hasn't. So Vincent, who's supposed to be depth, isn't. Martin has not played well. He has not been. You thought he'd take a step. He did not. He hasn't taken a step. Strus has played really pretty good, but Robinson's nowhere to be found. So, the depth that was such a big part of the run the last 2 out of the last 3 years, isn't the same depth. And that's the thing you want to build throughout the regular season, so then in the playoffs you can make a run. I'm not writing this team off. A lot of people are. I don't know what my aspirations are. Look, we talked with Ethan, Mr. 5 Reasons himself last week, and he says he doesn't think they're going to be bad. He just doesn't feel the same for them as he did last year. I can't fight that. The injuries, the missed games, you would think it may hurt their chemistry. And it's funny, culture chemistry. We hate these words. They're intangible. But they do matter. Every time we talk to a coach, every time we talk to a player, when you watch a team, you can see if they're playing in sync. This team, when it's on, plays very much in sync. And then they have a game like the Hawks, where they're just fighting and battling uphill the entire game. For a team that they should beat. So we'll see what the season is. I'm not writing them off again. I've learned when I said they should tank, and then they went and signed Jimmy Butler and were in the finals that year. COVID bubble, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. They were in the finals, and they had a chance. Down 2 of their starters, took the Lakers to 6 games. So, again, last year, down 5 guys hurt, and they were 1 shot away from getting to the final. So I won't write this organization off. I won't write this franchise off. But it does feel like there's a sense of complacency when it comes to the depth. Grant Long talked about that. He said, look, depth is a big deal. Bench is a big deal for a lot of these teams. And you're seeing it. The bad teams don't have. Everyone gets hurt. Everyone misses games. It's who has the depth. In the past, the Heat have had that. This season, it feels a little shaky. I'm curious if they figure that out. If you want to figure more things in the sports world out, check us out each and every morning. The Defo Show with Lubie on South Florida Live from 7 to 9. We also do some national stuff. Had a fun, interesting conversation with automotive artist Heidi Mraz. That's up on the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Search After Hours. And you can check us out here many days with our South Florida content, the Devo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Defo Show with Lubie.
Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?